Welcome back to the Sustainable Design Lab podcast brought to you by Veritiv. In this podcast, we explore the big ideas that are reshaping the future of packaging. My name is Chris Bradley, and I lead the Sustainable Design Lab for Veritiv. This episode is part 3 of our EPR for Packaging Masterclass series. We are assuming you have listened to the EPR overview, as well as part 1, the fundamentals, where we discussed how EPR works, eco-modulation fees, PROs, covered materials categories, and a host of other important topics, as well as part 2, which was the specific deep dive for the state of Oregon. If you're not familiar with these topics or have skipped ahead, we strongly encourage you to listen to those episodes sequentially before continuing with this class, as the content in this episode builds on the progressive knowledge that you're expected to gain by listening to the series in order. Please note that the information we share on this podcast is not legal advice and should be used only as an overview of the regulatory landscape surrounding packaging. Each company's situation involves variables that determine how these regulations apply, and you should consult your legal counsel regarding how specific regulations impact your business. Please also note that when we refer to sustainable packaging or products, we mean that generally the packaging or product produces less harmful impacts to human health and the environment than other options, or it has an attribute such as being recyclable or compostable that is generally considered to be less harmful to human health and the environment than packaging without those attributes. Whether or not a product is sustainable may mean different things depending on the objective that you're trying to achieve. All right, let's dive in. Similar to Oregon, Colorado has published a document governing its program, which may only be obtained by signing a producer agreement. Today, we will review key highlights of the Colorado program, and we're going to focus on the areas that are most important to packaging producers to understand. We will also discuss where Colorado's approach differs significantly from Oregon's. While Oregon's program emphasized recyclability, Colorado promotes certified compostable packaging and is making targeted investments to expand composting infrastructure and acceptance. To encourage facilities to accept compostable packaging, which many compost yards typically reject because it can degrade their compost quality, Colorado will offer per-ton incentives to compost facilities that accept certified compostable packaging. Colorado will also generally impose lower fees or dues on compostable packaging than it does on recyclables. By contrast, Oregon's program considers compostable packaging to be non-recyclable and therefore charges at least 5 cents more per pound on average than for recyclable materials. In practice, this means Oregon's program significantly penalizes compostable packaging with higher fees. Colorado, by contrast, takes a very different approach. Colorado plans to enhance the recovery and processing of certified compostable packaging while also investing in education and outreach to reduce contamination in compost streams. Colorado's program also shows a strong commitment to reuse and refill systems, offering eco-modulation incentives to drive adoption in this area. In fact, some reusable and refillable packaging systems are completely exempt from producer fees in Colorado, providing that they meet certain criteria. These include return from home systems, so packaging that is picked up directly from a consumer's home by either a logistics provider or the reuse company, which is then cleaned and reused by a business, is completely exempt. Return on the go, so packaging that is returned to an in-store drop-off point like a reverse vending machine is also exempt. And then refill on the go. Packaging refilled by the consumer at a store or a refill station is also exempt. What is not exempt is refill at home systems. So where consumers purchase refill products like a large bottle of liquid hand soap and then refill their dispensers or smaller packaging at home, these systems still rely on additional disposable packaging and therefore are subject to fees under Colorado's EPR program. Oregon does plan to add a reuse incentive in the future, but the details haven't been finalized yet. And while we're hopeful for stronger reuse efforts in Oregon, Colorado appears to be a bit more committed. They've even outlined a plan to create a reuse community of practice, which is a collaborative group focused on studying, piloting, and promoting reusable and refillable packaging models across the state. One of the standout features of Colorado's EPR plan is its strong focus on post-consumer recycled content, or PCR. The state has set a minimum PCR target by material category and plans to offer eco-modulation incentives to producers who exceed these targets. Some targets are relatively easy to surpass, which is going to create an early opportunity for producers to lower their fees. Colorado also plans to ensure fair access to locally produced PCR feedstocks, which is critical as demand rises for supply of PCR, and this kind of demand tightens globally. Here are some of Colorado's 2030 PCR targets for some different categories. Rigid plastic packaging, so think plastic bottles and jugs and components like that, has set a goal at 20%. With an eco-modulation bonus if you exceed this, but you will need to be able to prove chain of custody of your PCR. Flexible packaging, the target has been set at 5%. And since we have access today to 30% PCR films, even in 5-layer films, now this is more of an achievable opportunity, and this is really exciting. Paper and metal packaging, the target's been set at 40%, which should be achievable for most solutions. And then glass has been set at 30%, which is easily achievable in amber or green glass, but this may be more challenging to hit if you are shipping products in clear or flint glass. Overall, though, I would say that these PCR targets are realistic, giving producers an opportunity to incorporate more PCR and benefit from lower EPR dues. Broadly, Colorado aims to increase its baseline recycling rate, which it estimated at 25% in 2022 when it completed its baseline report, and they want to take it to 41% by 2030 and 55% by 2035. Like Oregon, Colorado plans significant community outreach and education to boost recycling rates statewide. Okay, before we dive into the fee or due schedules, let's talk about where Colorado is at in the rate-setting process. They're a bit behind Oregon, but they have published interim fee schedules based on early program estimates. Producers shipping packaging into the state of Colorado must submit a full-year data report for all of their 2024 tonnage by July 31st, 2025. After collecting and analyzing that data, the Circular Action Alliance plans to update the fee schedules, and they plan to publish that final version will be released by October 31st, 2025. So the rates we're about to review, to be clear, are likely to change, but they'll give us a sense of how Colorado's program operates and what to expect, especially as we compare it to Oregon. Like Oregon, Colorado offers a flat fee option for small producers. Producers with less than $5 million in gross revenues are exempt from paying EPR dues entirely. If you're a low-volume producer, which they're defining as shipping 10 tons or less of packaging into Colorado each year, you can choose to pay a simple flat fee instead of going through the full reporting requirements. These flat fees are based on the total weight of all the packaging you ship. You don't need to break it down by material class, etc. The graduated fee schedule starts around $600 for 1 ton and increases up to about $4,000 for just under 10 tons. Like Oregon, Colorado has also created a list of materials which are approved for recycling. You might remember that in Oregon, they use what's called the Uniform Statewide Collections List, or the USCL. This is the standardized list of materials that every community is required to collect for recycling. Instead of the USCL, Colorado uses the minimum recycled list, or the MRL. In Oregon, there was also a broader list managed by the PRO called the Recycling Acceptance List, covering additional materials that the PRO opted to recycle beyond the set of core recyclables. Again, Colorado has a very similar concept, and they call theirs the Additional Materials List, or the AML. I know there's a lot of acronyms. So in both states, you have two categories: a core list of materials widely accepted for recycling with generally lower fees. This is called the MRL in Colorado and the USCL in Oregon. And then there's also a broader list of materials that can be added to over time and expanded by the PRO. But this typically carries higher fees. This is called the AML in Colorado, or the Recycling Acceptance List in Oregon. Like in Oregon, CCA, or the Circular Action Alliance, in Colorado is tasked with creating pathways to move items from the AML to the MRL over time, especially helping expand what can be responsibly cycled. Okay, let's look at the dues or fee schedules for Colorado. Colorado provides dues or fee ranges in their initial fee schedule for 22 aggregated materials categories. Aggregated means that they have grouped together similar materials that may ultimately be separated into individual covered material categories in the future. We fully expect that they're going to do this. Remember that Oregon released 60 single item materials, or SIMs, in their fee schedule. So we expect that Colorado's fee schedule will be expanded to include a much larger breakout in their next revision. They have aggregated them based on high-level material class, for example, paper and fiber packaging or aluminum containers, but have also broken the aggregate categories out by whether or not they are accepted on the MRL, the AML, or the NC, or the not collected list. The different methodology makes a precise comparison of Oregon to Colorado fees somewhat difficult, but they do give us enough information to be able to compare Colorado's rates to Oregon. For purposes of comparison, we aggregated the 60 different Oregon SIMs into 22 aggregated material categories that Colorado has published, and it provided a table that you can review in the companion PDF that is available in the show notes. Now, for each aggregated category in Colorado, there is a fee range. We can use this information along with the type of material and whether or not it is on the MRL or the AML to compare Colorado's rates to Oregon's rates side by side. Let's now walk through how Colorado and Oregon compare across different material types. And there are really some striking differences here that we will talk about. Let's start with printing and writing paper. Colorado's rates are 2 cents to 8 cents a pound, compared to a flat 1 cent per pound in Oregon. So if you're moving a lot of office paper or paper that falls into that category, Oregon is clearly cheaper. Glass shows the opposite story. Colorado's fees are 2 cents to 6 cents per pound, while Oregon is charging 10 to 14 cents a pound. Aluminum cans are also cheaper in Colorado, at 4 cents to 5 cents per pound, compared to 6 to 8 cents in Oregon. Again, these are small differences, but it really does stack up, especially for big beverage brands. Steel containers, so think soup cans. These would cost 5 cents to 6 cents per pound in Colorado versus just 3 cents a pound in Oregon. So Oregon is significantly lower in fees for steel packaging. Paper and fiber packaging tells a more complicated story. For materials on the MRL, Colorado's range is 7 cents to 77 cents, while Oregon's is 3 cents to 43 cents. Now, they don't break out corrugated cardboard specifically, but assuming it is at the very low end of that range, this means that corrugated will be more than double the rate of Oregon at that 7 cents. Now, let's review plastics. This is where things are going to get interesting. For tougher to recycle fiber, paper and fiber packaging tells a more complicated story. For materials on the MRL, Colorado's range is 7 cents to 77 cents a pound, while Oregon's is just 3 cents to 43 cents. They don't break out corrugated cardboard specifically, but assuming it is at the very low end of that range, it will be more than double the rate of Oregon. For tougher to recycle fiber, items that are on the AML or the not collected list, Colorado is charging 15 cents to 44 cents a pound compared to 27 cents to 43 cents a pound in Oregon. In short, paper packaging appears to be more expensive to manage in Colorado overall, especially for the more common stuff. Now let's review plastics. This is where things get interesting. Rigid PET bottles, your standard water and soda bottles, are almost identical. Both Colorado and Oregon land between 15 cents and 23 cents per pound for common number one PET bottles. But for harder to recycle PET, Colorado stays between 23 cents and 35 cents, while Oregon spikes all the way up to 78 cents. So less common PET packaging gets a lot harder in Oregon. Rigid HDPE, or high-density polyethylene, like milk jugs or detergent bottles, for common types, Colorado ranges from 18 cents to 58 cents. Oregon ranges from 17 cents to 25 cents. For less common HDPE, Colorado climbs up to $1.21 and Oregon is capped at 89 cents. Other rigid plastics show a similar pattern. Colorado's range is 33 cents to $1.71, while Oregon's range is 31 cents to $1.09. So rigid mixed plastics are more expensive in Colorado if your material doesn't easily fit standard recycling streams. For flexible plastics, pouches, stretch films, food wrappers, plastic bags, Colorado ranges from 50 cents to $1.15 per pound, while Oregon ranges from 54 cents to $1.43. Both states charge a lot, but Oregon's high end is a bit steeper. And finally, for a grouping called plastic other, this is where Oregon's rate hit hardest. Colorado ranges from 48 cents to 63 cents, while Oregon rockets all the way up to $2.01 or even up to $2.73 per pound. And Oregon is using higher fee rates to discourage complex or hard to recycle plastics. And finally, certified compostable packaging like PLA and PHA, Colorado comes in at 13 cents to 46 cents per pound, far lower than most plastics, while Oregon comes in at $1.04 to $1.43 per pound. This is a significant difference, and it's clear that Colorado is actively encouraging compostable packaging, while Oregon is pricing it like a contaminant. Okay, here is a quick high-level recap. Paper and steel are cheaper in Oregon. Glass, aluminum, compostables, and simpler plastics are cheaper in Colorado. Oregon's fees escalate dramatically for flexible plastics, complex rigid plastics, and anything compostable. Colorado's program feels a bit more balanced, giving more breathing room to new materials and compostable innovation. Because of the differences between Colorado and Oregon's programs, producers will need to carefully navigate the material choices they make in their packaging, since those choices will have a direct impact on the fees that they pay in each state. Meanwhile, all eyes are on California's SB 54 rollout. We expect California's program to borrow heavily from both Oregon and Colorado, as they are using the same PRO and applying similar methodologies. Now let's shift gears and talk about eco-modulation incentives in Colorado. Eco-modulation adjusts producer fees based on how sustainable the packaging is, with the goal of encouraging better material choices and promoting circular design. Colorado's program includes specific incentives that lower fees for source reduction, so using less material per package, improved recyclability, so this means designing packaging that's easier to sort and recycle, higher post-consumer recycled content, and as we discussed before, these based on these PCR rates, but you have to be able to provide a chain of custody, and then reuse and refill systems with proof of effectiveness, such as real recycling or refill rates. In addition to these incentives, Colorado has built disincentives into the program. Packaging that increases recycling or composting costs, disrupts recycling streams, or uses materials that are not on the minimum recyclable list will face significantly higher fees. And the goal is to drive producers towards materials with responsible, established end markets. Colorado's eco-modulation program has two key pathways. Number one, material level eco-modulation, where fee adjustments are based on recyclability, sortability, or their MRL status. And then the second one is producer-specific incentives, which reward individual packaging redesigns. Now, the full details for producer-specific incentives are expected to be released alongside the updated fee schedule on October 31st, 2025. However, the program indicates that producers will be able to submit documentation showing material reductions, PCR improvements, or new reusable designs on a per SKU basis through a dedicated portal. Eligible incentive categories that they've talked about include source reductions, so this would be for lightweighting or right sizing, high PCR content, where your PCR is above the statewide targets we talked about earlier, verified by third-party data, or innovation in recyclability or material recovery, such as improved recovery rates at MRFs. It's important to note that these incentives can only be used to offset base fees. They won't generate refunds or credits beyond what you owe. And compared to Oregon, Colorado's eco-modulation timeline is a bit slower. So Oregon begins to offer eco-modulations incentives in 2025. Remember that you can submit LCAs in the fall of 2025 and get a discount on your 2026 bill. Colorado is still building its system, with incentives expected to be available for application in 2026, with the real benefits being used as a discount on your bill in 2027. Okay, here are my final thoughts as we wrap up this episode on Colorado's EPR for packaging deep dive. Both Oregon and Colorado are early leaders in shaping the future of packaging with extended producer responsibility regulations, but their priorities and philosophies are noticeably different. Oregon launched a recycling-first EPR model, focused almost entirely on modernizing and strengthening the state's recycling infrastructure. The state is investing heavily in building new material recovery facilities, or MRFs, and expanding curbside recycling access. However, in doing so, composting is taking a back seat. Compostable packaging is not embraced under Oregon's program, and if you look at their fee schedule, you could argue it's treated almost like a contaminant, something to be avoided rather than supported. Colorado, by contrast, is taking a more balanced and circular approach. Their EPR program intentionally includes composting, with direct funding for compost infrastructure, contamination reduction, and consumer education. Compostable packaging is treated as a legitimate recovery pathway, which we believe is critical. For certain categories, like food service and food contact packaging, recycling simply isn't realistic at this time. Composting is an important part of the solution for tackling the waste crisis, and Colorado isn't just tolerating compostables, they're actively investing to build the necessary systems. So in practice, Oregon is all in on recycling, doubling down on infrastructure and access. Colorado is investing in both recycling and composting, signaling that a true circular economy must include organics alongside traditional recyclables. Now, it's still too early to draw final conclusions. We don't have final fee schedules or fully baked incentive programs as of yet, but even now, there's enough visibility to spot real opportunities where smart innovation and more sustainable design can deliver serious cost savings. And that's exactly what we're diving into next. In our next episode, we'll get into advanced sustainable design strategies, practical ways that you can maximize your incentives, lower your fees, and redesign your packaging under these evolving EPR programs. We'll explore how to lightweight smarter, leverage this massive paperization trend, navigate the evolving fee schedules, and employ innovation to turn regulatory challenges into a true competitive advantage. That wraps up our Colorado deep dive. Thanks for tuning in, and I can't wait to continue the conversation in the next episode.